And, you know, I started going through a lot of photos and a lot of old files, and it was a pretty cool walk down memory lane. But I got to say, there's so much that I could say that I'm probably going to bounce all over here and there. So if I lose you, if you get confused, hit the space bar and say something to me. But I'm going to do the best I can to kind of give you my little life story on how we got to take it outdoors and how it started. So hold on. I need to get to my, all right, PowerPoint. So here we are in the beginning. It's a grainy picture, but that was the best I could, because back in '79, they didn't have digital photos. But this is actually in Algonquin Provincial Park in Canada. And this is my sister. Can you see my pointer? Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
so that's my sister. It's my dad, who's just younger there than I am now, probably my oldest brother, Mike, my brother, Mark, and then that little blurry guy is me. And that's Algonquin. And about 30 some odd years later, I would lead a trip there for Take It Outdoors as our first big major trip. So that was kind of cool for me. But as a kid, I loved the outdoors. You could always find me playing in the woods with my friends. But my real love for the outdoors and what kind of started to become Take It Outdoors didn't start until I was probably 19, 20. I started going out with my friends and my brother Mark, and sometimes with my brother Mike. And yeah, we started doing a lot of trips, and the best memories of my life. And, you know, it was friendship, adventure mixed in with a healthy portion of stupidity, because whenever I'm involved, there's always some stupidity. But, you know, it was these trips, it was these trips that really started, for me, in my mind, getting Take It Outdoors developed. You know, it was this trio here with these three that really a lot of the trips that became Take It Outdoor trips stemmed from, and also a lot of my life lessons. We did a lot together, and then also, you know, we did a lot of AT hikes. We would go to the White Mountains a lot, and on the way to the White Mountains, we'd always dream about not being in an office or a 9-to-5 job, and, you know, what we could do to get out of the 9-to-5 life. And that kind of stuck in my brain. And eventually I did move on to do just that. But with these guys, I learned a lot of lessons. So some of the life lessons I learned while going on trips with these guys is that I had to learn to laugh at myself. And thank God, because now I give you guys a bunch of fodder to pick on me and laugh at me for. So I learned to laugh at myself. And the other thing I learned was democracy, because, you know, a lot of times when I was out with these, it was just us three, so you couldn't have a tie vote. So Schulte here on the right, he was the conservative, and we always nicknamed him Pup-Up because he was very conservative. And then there was this guy here in the middle, myself. I was a little more of a risk taker, not always the brightest. And then this guy over here was BK. He was probably the most level-headed, and he was usually the deciding vote. But you know, along the line somewhere, because I started off with these guys as kids, and sometimes if you didn't get your own way, you'd be like, "Oh man, that's stupid. You guys are idiots. We should go this way." But with these guys, I learned that eventually, like, we'd go out in the wilderness and we'd have to make a decision. Should we do this? Should we do that? And with these guys, we would talk it out, discuss it, and then whichever the majority voted, you would just roll with it. And instead of holding it against anybody or sulking because you didn't get your way, you learn how to just roll with it, leave it behind you, and move forward. Another thing I learned from these bozos was, you know, through that discussing things and figuring out trips, I learned how to plan the trips, how to present my ideas so they could be better heard. I learned how to lead. And then also with these guys, I learned how to follow, which I think is a very key thing, because I don't think you can really lead that well unless you know when you should follow. And that was a good lesson for me. So some of the trips that I did growing up, obviously this is a different group here, but that short-haired fellow there, me, that was back when I was working a 9-to-5 office job in the financial world, and I had to wear a suit to work. So I looked respectable back then. But trips like this is Ohio Pile, and we went there. I used to go there several times with some of my work colleagues also, and we'd go with bigger groups. So that taught me a lot of the planning and logistics, how to get bigger groups to do what you wanted them to do. And eventually Take It Outdoors went on and ran this trip a couple times. Doug and Chris actually ran it for International Insurance Group as a team building activity. So that was cool. Adirondacks was a huge trip that my brothers and I, when we got a little older, we would go back to Algonquin, and then we also started taking our friends there, which really started to spur a lot of our trips. But then eventually people started having kids, not me at the time, but everyone else was having kids, and we had to stay closer to home, so we would do the Adirondacks, and the Adirondacks became a true, I love the Adirondacks. It's such a great resource. It's only 5.5 hours away, depending on where you go. And we've done several trips to the Adirondacks with Take It Outdoors. We usually try to hit the fall foliage, and we've been pretty lucky with that. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area. And since I would do that with my brothers, I had to learn the art of compromising and biting your tongue, because they do things a little different than I do. But and then the key to Take It Outdoors success was happy hour. Doo-doo-doo. So my friends and I mean, we like to we would always have an Nalgene. This Nalgene down here is probably whiskey. It's probably not water. But it was key for us at the end of a day of being on the river or a long hike or whatever, is to have a happy hour. And we found for us, like, happy hour brings out the good times, and it really, it cements the good times that you had, and you talk about it and you laugh about it. But also, if you had a hard day on the trail or a hard day on the river and you tipped and the river kind of beats you up, afterwards, when you can sit down, you can kind of discuss it with your friends, laugh about it, and it becomes more of a triumph for you instead of just a bad experience. So, you know, and it builds community. So happy hour was always a key thing for my friends and I, and it eventually became a big thing for Take It Outdoors. But it was a lot of these trips that I did with my friends that I actually started doing with Take It Outdoors. In fact, my friends were always telling me, like, dude, you're selling our trips. And it was true. I was all these, what I wanted to do with Take It Outdoors was eventually I wanted to bring that awesome feeling that we had, that feeling of community and friendship and the great memories and just getting out and living life. I wanted to bring that to other people. And I was inspired by going out with these bozos. And yeah, great memories. So while I was doing that, though, I did lose my path. There comes a time in everyone's life, I think, where you kind of feel like you're not living up to your potential. And yeah, you just don't feel like you're on the path you intended to be on when you were younger. And though I had a good job in the financial industry and everything and a good career, but it wasn't fulfilling me. And I decided to leave the financial industry. And then I had a couple years of just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then one winter I went and I decided to buy a kayak, because up until this time I was canoeing. And so I found this store. I used to always go down to Delaware, but I found this store up in Gilbertsville. I'd never seen it before, and I'd bought several boats. But I found this store up in Gilbertsville, so I gave him a call, and an older gentleman answered. He was the owner, and he told me that they were closing down, that they were selling it because he wanted to retire. So a light bulb went in my head. At the time, I was saving up for a house. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and then bang, here's this opportunity to possibly buy this kayak and canoe store. And I thought that would be awesome. So I went and looked at it. The day before I looked at it, someone else came to me and he said, you know what you should do? You should open a canoe and kayak store. And I was like, oddly enough, I'm going to go look at one tomorrow. And so it turns out he was interested in being an investor. I took I put together a business plan, took out a loan, and I got the store. I bought the store. We had to relocate it, did a lot of work to suit out the next place. But and I remember thinking back then, I was like, I have arrived. Like, this is it. This is what I've been meant to do. This is my dream. This is my passion. and all the naysayers saying, you know, you shouldn't have quit the good job and everything. Like, this was it. This was my moment to shine. Long story short, 3 years later, I had to shut it down because I didn't make the money. So it was an epic failure for me. The store was the retail, you know, no matter what, no matter how cool the stuff you're selling, it comes down to just moving product. And, you know, we still had the recession going on at that time. And it just was it didn't work. And it was a public humiliation. It was a public failure. I lost all my money, all my savings. And it was a really dark time in my life. And I had to start deciding what I wanted to do from there. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And so there was a song I used to always listen to growing up. It was Pink Floyd. I love Pink Floyd. And so here I was in the lowest part of my life. 40 was on the horizon. And for me at that time seemed like a really high number. And you know, there was one lyric I would always listen to, and when I was younger, and I always thought, God, that seems so sad, and I hope it doesn't become me. But it's, you know, it's Pink Floyd, and it's now you're lost in a haze of alcohol, soft middle age. The pie in the sky turned out to be miles too high. So for me, I was that guy I always feared not being. Where, I mean, I was pushing 40, epic failure, public failure, no money, and huge pile of debt. So I didn't know what to do at that point, but I decided I'm going to roll the dice. And the one good thing that Take It Outdoors had going for it, or at that time it was Kelly's Canoe and Kayaks, was I started the Wednesday paddles during that, and I was starting to do some weekend trips, and those were doing well, and we started getting a little bit of a group and a community. And I decided to roll the dice, and I was going to take what few kayaks I had left and start doing Wednesday paddles. At the time, I only had my Jeep Wrangler and a pickup truck. We had no van. So when I did weekend trips, people would actually show up with their own cars, and we would do a group shuttle to the put-in. And I can't believe people gave me money for it, but they did, and that was great because that helped me get started. And after a few years, I was able to, or after a year, I did buy an old van and started running more trips. And it started growing. And yeah, I mean, the community started growing, and I met some people that definitely helped me along the way. You know, here's Evan and Tio. They were great in the beginning, and Evan's been there ever since. I mean, Evan was there. He bought his kayak for me back then, and he's always been there to help me out through all of it. And yeah, so, you know, earlier I mentioned how the happy hour, I can't take all the credit that it was my idea, because actually these guys deserve a lot of credit, because even though I'm a public person and I love groups and I like being the center of attention, I also like my me time. And also at the time I was in a pretty dark place. So I would go out on the Wednesday paddles, and afterwards they would go out for a beer, and I would tell them I'm going home, but I would really just go to a different bar with my book and read a book and have a beer and just kind of decompress. And finally they forced me to go out, and I was like, God damn it, I don't want to go out. I just want my me time with my beer and my book. But they dragged me out, and I'm glad I did it. And from there on out, I mean, the happy hours after our trips became a key part. And it's a key part of the success, because like I said, it really builds the community, helps everybody get to know each other. And it gives you time to really laugh and cement the good memories you had from being outdoors. So Take It Outdoors continued to grow, and more people came out, and we started running bigger trips. Like I said, we did Algonquin, we started doing Adirondacks, and yeah, it was really going well. I needed to hydrate. But and along the way, let me just kind of pause here. Along the way, I met so many people. Like, I can't tell you how much it meant to me to have this community of people that just were willing to help. And it goes on today with Jeff, Doug, Chris, and I hate listing because I'll always forget somebody. And Evan, I don't know if he's here now or not, but there was always people willing to pitch out. And that was something I had to learn too. Is growing up, I was always overly independent and I didn't like to accept help. And along the way, I had to learn how to accept help. And that was huge. By letting people help me, they also felt more involved. And I learned from them, they learned from me, and it was a very good community and reciprocal relationship. So, so Take It Outdoors started to grow. And then while all this was going on, I also met another organization called the Schuylkill River Greenways Association. And Tim Fenchel, whoop, whoop, is there, out there somewhere. But so just before I closed my doors for the retail store, Bob from the Schuylkill River Greenways Association stopped in and he asked me if I wanted to be the outfitter for the Schuylkill River Sojourn. And for those of you who don't know the Schuylkill River Sojourn, ask me about it after we're done here. It's an awesome adventure. There's plenty of people in this chat room that have done it. It's 7 days from the headwaters to Philadelphia. And it's the best way I can tell you is it's a summer camp for adults. And it's a great experience. But anyway, so I became the outfitter for that. And then that was really cool because I got to work with two other outfitters. I got to work with the Quants and then later on Matt Stan, who became Bad Adventures. And I don't know how many times you'll find a Sojourn where there's three outdoor companies working together as harmoniously as we did. But for me, being the greenback, I took the opportunity to watch and learn, and I couldn't have found better people than the Quants to watch and learn from. So that kind of helped me with my professionalism and my guiding skills and people skills and group management. But on top of that, with the Schuylkill River Greenways, it really tapped me into something deeper and even more meaningful than what I started out with. They connected me also with other nonprofit organizations along the river. And, I hate to say I couldn't have done, Take It Outdoors would never have succeeded without both the independent portion of it and without the Greenways. Together, they really made Take It Outdoors successful. And, but the Schuylkill River Greenways gave me a little bit more of the soul to the business and a little bit more of the meaning to it because it became much more, I was always community driven, but this tapped me into a bigger community and it let me see more what we could accomplish as a community. And, a lot of the outfitters along rivers up until recently have been, a lot of times it's just people that don't really appreciate the rivers and they litter or they use it just as a conveyor belt and they're just processing people down the river and they don't really care about the community as much or the rivers. And I never wanted to be a part of that. And with the Schuylkill River Greenways, it helped me get people out on the river, but also in a way that we could appreciate the river, help educate people about the river and the community. And so it just deepened my my focus on what I wanted to accomplish with Take It Outdoors. And so there's so much I could say. You guys can ask me questions later if you're still interested. But anyway, so out of the rubble. So, I when I had to close down Take It Outdoors, like I said previously, it was a very dark time in my life. It was very hard. And I didn't see the light. I didn't see how I was going to climb out of it. And I knew eventually I'd get to a livable life, but I didn't think it would be ever to a point where I could live out the dreams that I had had up until then. So it was tough, but within 1 or 2 years, I would say Take It Outdoors was doing good enough that I could, I was working full time while doing Take It Outdoors, and I was able to back that off, and then I was able to just do part time with EMS, and eventually I was able to just do winter work at like Bear Creek or whatnot. So it started to really grow and take off. The picture got broader for me. I was able to do things to help kids. We do a week-long project with called Action Impacts, which is getting high school students out and helping them decide what they want to do with their futures, and just a lot of more rewarding work. So that was really cool. But I guess the best thing, so in like 3 to 4 years, we were running climbing groups, and we were also doing ski trips, and we were doing weekend ski trips to Elk Mountain. And one day I went at 5:30 in the morning to meet the group where we were all meeting at Wegman Shopping Center for the ski trip to Elk Mountain. And there was this tall blonde girl there, and I didn't realize it at the time, but she would become my wife. So she was from Switzerland, and she was living in the U.S. for work for 4.5 years. And I don't know what the hell she was thinking. There's a couple things I don't know what the hell she was thinking. One, I don't know what the hell she was thinking, come from the Swiss Alps and wanting to try out Pennsylvania skiing at Elk Mountain. And later on, I don't know what the hell she was thinking, saying she wanted to date me. And I still don't know what the hell she was thinking when she said she wanted to marry me. But hey, everybody is allowed to have a couple bad decisions here and there. But so that's how I got here to Switzerland. And yeah, so, you know, out of the rubble, within 3.5 years of my darkest time in my life, I was at the highest of highs. Yeah, it's the best. I mean, it's a great story. So when I do get the chance to talk to kids and everything, I definitely tell them my story. I tell them the story about how, you know, my dreams and how I thought I had it, and then I failed, and I failed hard. And then how I just kept moving forward and kept my head up as much as I could. And eventually, you know, I found the life that I wanted. I found a life better than I ever dreamed I could have. So, you know, I like to tell that story to the kids. And, you know, I like to hit. I like to let them know, like, don't give up. Don't be afraid of failure. When you do fail, keep moving forward, because you never know what'll happen. So I let them know. Success. A lot of people think it looks like the picture on the left, but what it really looks like is the picture on the right, and that is definitely my story of success. And yeah, so that's pretty much my presentation. But before I let you guys all talk, I wanted to say a couple other things. I really, really, really couldn't have done Take It Outdoors. Like this whole thing is, I didn't feel comfortable with it really, because it's all about me, and this is nothing about me. Take It Outdoors was, yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of people. It was a community. Take It Outdoors is a community. And I couldn't have done it without people. I always am leery of starting to name names, because I could never hit everybody. I'll miss them all. But of course, you know, the people who are here right now, Jeff, thanks for putting this together. Doug and Chris, you know, you're a huge help. Evan, if you're out there, T.O., yeah, I hate to give out names because I'll miss somebody. But yeah, so I hope this doesn't come off as Doug Chapman did something, because I couldn't have done it by myself. So yeah, that's my story. Here we are in quarantine and chatting internationally. So feel free to jump in and let's talk, because I'm tired of hearing myself talk.
Well, thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah. So,
Good story.
oh, yeah. How do I get out of this, Jeff? Stop sharing. There we go. Okay. So, who's drinking a good beer?
Jeff,
I have Perpetual.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
Good. I've got The Truth by Flying Dog.
Oh my God, Megan, where'd you come from?
I was in a meeting. I am still working, so I was late for getting out of my meeting. Sorry.
You're still working. You must have 2 laptops.
No, I've got one laptop and several screens.
Okay.